Lisa Mitnick is currently a managing director of Accenture Mobility, where she's responsible for mobility services within the North America health and public service markets. Accenture Mobility delivers solutions that prepare Accenture clients and their mobility customers to meet the demands and seize the opportunities that mobility presents. From smartphones to tablets, consumer devices to industrial equipment. Lisa was recently named one of Mobile Marketer's Mobile Women to Watch. I'm excited. Lisa's going to talk about how mobile services are changing the way people live and interact within the world around them. Mobile technology can transform government through mission support, enhanced citizen services, increased employee productivity, and improved health outcomes. During this session, we will explore the upcoming trends in mobility and provide examples of ways in which mobility is transforming all aspects of government, from citizen services to employee productivity. This session will explain how to improve business processes through the incorporation of mobile technologies from both an internal and external perspective. So without any further ado, join me in giving Lisa Mitnick a warm welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here today. Thank you. Well, I'm glad everybody came up to the tables. We'll have a nice intimate lunch, after lunch session. It's great to be here in Sacramento. I live in our nation's capital where the weather is still very, very cold. And our cherry blossoms haven't even come out yet. So it's great to be here with all the blooms. It's just beautiful. So thank you for having me. Today I'm going to talk about improving government through mobile technology. And I have to say I was just really excited when I was downstairs in the pavilion to see all the great innovation and passion for mobile technology. You all are doing great things and really impacting our citizens, employees, the healthcare of our citizens. So it's just exciting. So thanks for having me. So let me figure out where the clicker is so we can get started. Before I do that, let me just say what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start off by talking about the trends in mobile technology, what's going on, what the impact is for CIOs and how they serve employees and citizens and those implications. And then I'm going to move into talking about how mobile can truly be transformative to government. And as we just heard, in terms of mission, back office, we'll talk about citizen support as well as health. And then finally, I'll wrap up and talk a little bit about where organizations are in their mobile journey, because it is a journey, let's face it. It's not something where you put in place a strategy and you're done, because the technology is evolving so quickly. So we'll look at some strategic frameworks that you can utilize in your organizations to get mobile going or to accelerate your mobile activities, as well as talk about a mobile center of excellence, which you may want to consider implementing in your organization. And then if we have time, we can take Q&A. Okay, first trend, Californians are mobile. And I think you all know that Californians are mobile, because I'm sure every one of you has a mobile device. If you don't have a smartphone, raise your hand. Okay, nobody raised their hand, right? If you take the statistics on a national basis and you apply them to California, you'll see that about 24 million adult Californians have a cell phone, and about 12 million adult Californians own a smartphone. So that's pretty high penetration rate. And what you find out when you look at mobile technology adoption, it crosses all ages and ethnicities and even income levels. So even while it's more skewed for the wealthy and for the younger to have tablets and smartphones, we are seeing increased adoption rates of mobile even among lower income. And these are folks that you need to be able to reach. So if you look on the charts that you see there, I'm looking down here of course, what you'll see is that in the under $30,000 category, 31% have a smartphone. That's almost 1 in 3. If you aren't delivering your services through mobile, you're not reaching this population. So job one is really thinking about not mobile as a nice to have, but truly a must have if you're going to engage with citizens today. Okay, trend number 2. Smartphones have surpassed PC sales, portable PC sales, and tablets are growing even more rapidly. And you can really see how quickly the smartphone sales have taken off. For many folks, the mobile phone is the only computing device that they have. And just a few years ago, if you looked at the tablet market, maybe one or two of your friends had one. It was really cool. I don't know, at Christmas, which kid didn't get an e-reader or didn't get a tablet? I mean, it seems like today everyone is getting a tablet. And what we're seeing in enterprises are organizations are looking to move to a single device. And with the increased power, form factor, feature functionality of these tablets, we are going to see folks moving to a single device at some point in the future. I also have the opportunity to work in life sciences where they have large sales forces that are going out and talking to providers. And what we find is that they are definitely moving in the direction of a single device. Now, they don't have all the apps yet that they need, so they haven't weaned themselves from the PC, but I can tell you that the CIOs in every one of those organizations is saying, we're going to move in this direction. It's going to lower costs, it's going to improve productivity, can be very effective. So I think we're going to see that migration happening. So what's going on over in IT? Well, I'm sure you all have seen the consumerization of IT that's going on. Everybody wants their apps and they want them now. And it's not just about email, it's not just about PIM, their calendar and contact information, but people really want workflows. They want their dashboards, they want their sales tools, they want their training, they want their HR apps. Give it to me on mobile. That's what they're saying. And the CIOs are like, okay, we want to provide this, but we can't keep up with this demand. The other thing that's happening is a true demand for this BYOD. You hear that term all the time, bring your own device, and it really is amazing how this wave has come over every organization, whether it's private sector or public sector, because folks are really used to, the user experience from going onto the App Store or the Android Marketplace, and they want that same user experience at work. And they just don't find that with the devices that they have or the kinds of applications they have. So what we're now starting to see is this movement toward BYOD. But it's not just about the technology. You really do need to think out what the policies that you want to put in place are for that. You have to think about, do I have a unionized workforce? What's the implication of having somebody get access to corporate information after work? Or in some organizations, they have very, very tight security policies. So for example, I work in the federal space a lot, and there they want you to turn off YouTube, they don't want you to use your camera in certain buildings. Hey, I don't really want to do BYOD if you're going to make me not be able to use my device, right? So there need to be some attractive incentives. The other thing you have to think about from a total cost of ownership perspective is, what's the servicing cost associated with everybody having a different mobile device, different operating system, etc.? How am I going to support that? So it really would recommend that as you look at this, that you really think closely about all the factors that go into play with BYOD. It's great, it can save money, it can drive incredible end user satisfaction, but at the end of the day, you have to weigh all your options. And you may want to just say, we're going to limit it to these 3 devices or these 4 devices, etc. And so it maybe is a modified bring your own device type of policy. But what we are seeing with the NASCIO survey, they have 54% of states now have policies in place permitting BYOD, and another 18% of individual agencies are permitting BYOD. So it certainly is taking off, and I think we're going to see more of it, but you definitely need to think about the policy side of it and the total cost of ownership while you're doing it, because it's not just, oh, I won't have this device cost anymore. So, mobility. A few years back, mobility was a cool area, but not top of priority list for CIOs. We just did a study with Accenture with CIOs around the globe. We talked to about 400 and some CIOs across public sector, private sector, Asia, Europe, North America, and we have seen just a tremendous increase in interest in mobile technology. It's becoming at the forefront. And what you see on these slides is a slice by the government. And you can see that 62% of government CIOs rank mobility high to very high priority. So it's definitely taking off. And if you're interested in this study, and there's a pretty comprehensive study down in the pavilion or the Solution Center, you can get a copy of the study for your reading pleasure. The NASTIO state study also shows that government CIOs have now placed this as the #2 IT and solution priority. And so that's right after cloud. If you looked a few years back, it wasn't ranked that high. So clearly the momentum's building at this point for mobile. So what's holding things back? My colleague had a conversation with folks earlier this morning talking about mobile security. I only have one slide here on security, but it clearly is the biggest barrier to adopting mobile technology for government. And then the next one down is cost and budget concerns. Security is always a concern, particularly with BYOD. You want to make sure you have data loss protection policies. Maybe you need a containerized approach to securing your content. And there are all sorts of technologies out there, mobile device management, mobile application management, different approaches in terms of containers and things like that that you can start to adopt. But a lot of times, no single solution is going to meet all your needs, and you're really going to have to think about policies. I don't want to scare you about security, it's just that you need to step back and really think about it holistically from an end-to-end perspective and plan for it. So I don't think it should hold back anyone, and in fact, when I was downstairs, it was pretty clear that everyone was extremely enthusiastic about mobile and moving forward. But it does make a lot of sense to put the processes and policies in place, because let's face it, I can have an iPad and I can take a photo of it and I've just exposed government data, or I could put it on a copy machine. At the end of the day, people will figure out how to get around things, so you need to complement technology with policy to get to the solution you're looking for. Okay, next topic, how mobile can be transformative to government. The way I look at mobile is really in 4 pillars. The first pillar is around mission, things like emergency response, first responders, public safety, law enforcement, as well as things like building and property inspections. Those are things that are core to your mission, and applying mobile can be very impactful to achieving that mission. The next area to think about is back office. We have lots of employees out there that are looking for support around business intelligence, reporting, training, HR support. We can mobile enable the back office and give our employees much more freedom to work from wherever they want and be more productive. The third area where I've seen a lot of innovation, particularly today downstairs, is around citizen. I saw a great parks application from the state parks, the California State Parks, which was wonderful. But there's so many different areas, DMV applications, road conditions, government benefits, government finders, lots of ways to engage with citizens today. And as I said, for many folks, the smartphone is their only mobile computing device. And then the last area that I think is particularly important is healthcare. With the Affordable Care Act, it's going to be increasingly important to help folks get access to health care. And it's not just about getting the access, but also having folks engage in their health care, engage in their wellness, using tools like remote health monitoring to help with chronic disease management, reminders to go to a doctor's appointment. All of these things can improve health outcomes and drive lower costs for the state and local government. So let's start with mission. So some of the things that we're seeing today in mission are law enforcement, things like public safety searches, police information catalogs, as well as crime reports. I mean, for a police officer and law enforcement officer to be able to get access to information on the job is absolutely critical. Next area, first responders. Having unified interoperable communications is absolutely critical. Being able to have a single number reach, single voicemail inbox from any channel to any channel. You know, there's so many emergency situations going on, and we can't be silos. So bringing that all together is hugely important to make that investment in the infrastructure. Then in terms of our core infrastructure for the state or the localities, being able to provide maintenance to keep roads and highways safe. All these tools are made for mobile, scheduling, dispatch, route optimization, being able to document with a photo when you're out on a site to collect that information, getting the right directions, signing off on things, all absolutely critical. Case management, folks that are going out, working with the foster care system. You know, there's a lot of opportunity to not only update case information, but also prevent fraud in the system. Did that caseworker go to that home? Did they document what's going on? Did they timestamp it? You can get all that information. And then we wouldn't want to forget about things like safety inspections, right? Being able to go into a building to do those inspections, to collect that information, etc. Lots of ways to support the mission with mobile. And I think what you'll see is that agencies that are employing these kinds of services can really drive not only lower costs, but improve productivity. Mobile is truly made for a field force, okay? Whether it's remote data access, whether it's mobile communication through voice or text while you're on the job, okay? Things like document storage, document capture, being able to get into your back-end systems, employee monitoring and management, as well as customer management. All those types of things can be effectively done through the mobile channel. But it's not just about technology. You don't want to just go in and mechanize the mess. You really have to think about, how are you going to drive improved productivity? How can I think about this process differently and transform the workflow? And so if you look at that pyramid on the chart over there, what you'll see is at the foundational level, it's the fundamentals. How's the technician's performance? How's the supervisor's effectiveness? What's the culture like? At the second level, you're really thinking about processes and organizational design and what your practices are. And then at the top is the technology. So you really want to step back every time you're doing your transformation of your field workers, really start to think about, how can I transform the whole process? And when you do that, you're going to have much larger impact. So I have a few statistics, and these are from commercial organizations, but I think it's very telling. We do a lot of work, field force work, where we help organizations transform how they do their work and implement the technology alongside it. And what you can see is organizations typically achieve one good extra job a day. That is hugely impactful to the bottom line, and is going to result in better customer service, right? You're going to get there on time. You're going to have so much more of an effective response time. You're going to be able to comply with what you said you would do with your customers. So all this additional data is not only going to reduce your costs, but it's going to be able to you to be more customer friendly. And this applies also to government. We worked with the US Census Bureau when they did the 2010 I can't even pronounce it correctly, the 2010 census, and basically it went from a process of, you know, people doing it manually to doing it in an automated fashion using mobile technology. And so it went from 3 months to 19 days with all temporary workers, about 150,000 of them. And it was hugely impactful in terms of productivity and effectiveness. And I think when you look across any type of these large government programs, there is truly opportunity to transform the workflow. But clearly you need to think about tying the technology to the business process. Okay, now we're going to talk about back office. And it's an area I think that's very ripe for mobile as well. It may not be as high on the list because it's sometimes a little bit harder to prove the ROI on it immediately, but there are some areas that are probably more impactful than others. So the areas you would probably want to look at are human resources, things like business intelligence, finance, procurement, as well as logistics. And logistics and procurement tend to have a little bit more easy to make a business case in terms of ROI, but I will tell you across the spectrum in terms of driving increased customer satisfaction and user satisfaction, worker productivity, you will have a good business case. It may just be softer types of numbers. There's a number of things you want to consider as you're developing these solutions. Multi-platform support. You want to make sure you have a consistent type of user experience. You want to maximize those device capabilities. You want to manage your maintenance costs as you deploy them. You're also going to want to think about your security practices. What you do on the laptops isn't necessarily going to be the same for mobile, so you're going to have to think about data at rest, data in transit. You want to think about a single sign-on approach for these applications, simplify the whole user authentication process, as well as how you integrate with the back end. So clearly, lots to think about as you implement this, but I think a huge potential impact. Now this is a bit of an eye chart, so I'll just try and walk you through it at a high level. What I tried to do is unpack human resources and just show you. So if you look down the left-hand side, you see different roles: staff, manager, leadership. And then across the top, you can see different types of HR activities: workforce planning and management, talent management, core HR, payroll time and legal expenses, and HR services. And if you look across each of those buckets, and I realize it's a little hard to read, you'll see that there are different mobile applications that can be very impactful to different folks in your organization, enabling somebody to look up who's who in the organization, to be able to do approvals for leave, to be able to put in your time and expense, to be able to do your performance appraisals, to be able, while you're on the road, to do your training on your mobile application. Clearly, how you develop these apps has to be consistent with the form factor, needs to be easy to use, etc. But lots of opportunity just in HR alone to transform that whole process and enable folks to work from anywhere, anytime, and be efficient. Another area that I think is quite right for mobile enablement is the area of logistics. So things like trip requests, vehicle driver tracking, T&E reporting for these carriers and things like that. Or applications where you're checking in, when a plane lands, to get access to shipments and sign off on those shipments and be able to have a receipt of services, as well as all the business intelligence and reporting. So what I would urge all of you to do is to take a look at your core back office functions and think about what are those areas that are most ripe in your organizations for mobile enablement, and where can you drive the most impact to your organization. It's definitely worth stepping back and thinking about what, not just how are we going to do it, but what you're going to do and the potential impact it can have on your organization. And it's okay to take small steps and have a win with maybe your first logistics app and then build upon that. Okay, now off to Citizen. I'm going to pull some more data from this NASCIO survey that was just done in 2012. And what you can see is that they identified traffic, road conditions, and DMV as the #1 app, followed by parks and recreation type of services. These are mostly informational types of apps, and we saw lots of them downstairs, and they're really great, and people are utilizing them all the time. And they expect this from their government, whether it's local, state, federal. They want that information provided to them at their fingertips, anytime, anywhere. But there's more ways that we can engage with citizens beyond just providing information. One of the exciting areas for mobile is providing mobile access to citizens for accessing things like entitlements and services. And this can have many, many benefits to you and to the end users. First, improving citizen service, right? We already talked about this, but easy, anytime, anywhere access to government resources. A robust user experience for application process, as well as being able to get notifications and alerts of my case status and alerts about upcoming deadlines. Wow, I just reduced the number of call center calls. Hey, how's my application coming along? Now I have all that information at my fingertips because I've had it all set up. It also reduces costs for you, the government. Why? Because self-service on the mobile portal is going to help you reduce those help desk calls. You're going to have a more automated process, so you're going to have cost savings from that. You're going to have automated workflows. So everything's going to improve your productivity. The third area is driving awareness and outreach. Okay, so if you think about government, we have the Affordable Care Act. You want to get the word out that come sign up, right? So you can do that. You can have mobile applications with marketing. You can use QR codes. You can survey folks and find out information before the exchanges even launch. You can get engaged with customers and consumers and understand them. So getting out there, getting your QR codes on signs at bus stops and in doctors' offices, wherever. This is your opportunity to have an outreach, to have a dialogue, and create that two-way conversation. So when you look at mobile applications, there's a lot of features and functions that are quite robust and exciting that drive a lot of this engagement. So things like the camera function, the scanner function, GPS, these are all the rich features of the phone that you can start to leverage to drive a much more exciting experience for your consumers and interaction. It also allows them, through the application process, if they're using a native app or a hybrid app, to work offline. So they can start an application, put it aside, and come back to it and continue to work on it and sync up later. So there's lots of advantages from having a hybrid or native app, and it will enable you to do all sorts of robust types of interactions with your customers. So things like submitting your application, checking for eligibility, receiving notifications, scheduling appointments. Pretty much anything you want to do, you can do from your mobile phone with lots of convenience. So it's a lot more than information. It's really about engagement. The other side of this, as we talked about before, is the whole area around improving call center efficiency and improving customer service. So how it would work is you have an app that connects to a rep and gives you 3 options. Call back with approximate wait time, connect and talk to the first available rep, text chat with somebody. All these types of features are going to help you manage the call volume. It also enables you to get to the right customer service representative, have less wait time, so you have less people complaining. You can actually start to manage your call center function that much more efficiently by using mobile technology in an effective way. And you can also provide these notifications through text alerts so they're not calling you on a repeated basis. So you can start to automate more and more of the processes. All right, last area in terms of focus that I think can be very impactful for government is healthcare. So mobile can be leveraged to help improve health outcomes and lower the cost of care. And there's a lot of examples. One of the things that's particularly interesting is even outside of the developed world, when you look at the developing world, they have been very aggressive in using mobile technology. It's mostly been text-based, but they are using it in a way to drive much better health outcomes because they don't have the infrastructure support in those environments. They're using it for mobile payments. We're learning lessons from the developing world and applying mobile health here in this country. But things that we can do are things like health maintenance. You can use text to remember to schedule an appointment, to remember to take your medication, to make sure that you go to your mammogram appointment or get your flu shot. All these things are hugely important to managing your health and keeping folks out of the emergency room. Also, mobile can be used to provide education, provide online community support, as well as care coordination tools. So you really want to think about mobile in terms of helping the user, the patient, become more engaged with their health. So ultimately, they're going to be healthier. It's going to lower the cost for the state. And when you think about mobile, it's not just about the phone. There's things like sensors, medical devices that can be connected through Bluetooth and other types of technologies to manage folks that have chronic diseases like diabetes. So you can manage your blood sugar levels, or you can manage somebody that has CHF, because you can measure and track this information directly from these devices and provide that back so that you and your caregiver can see how you're doing and get those early warning signals so that you do stay out of the hospital and that you are given the kinds of medication and treatment and therapies that you need. Another area that's important for health is community-based health services, where you can really leverage the power of mobile to lower the cost of delivering services. And so you can use lay folks, for example, to get involved in helping folks that have barriers to getting access to the healthcare system. So, for example, you see here a patient navigation application, and that's something we have downstairs in the pavilion at the Accenture booth, where we developed an application to help folks that may be homeless, maybe have a difficult time getting access to care. And there's these lay people that come and work with them to understand what are they eligible for, what kind of services can they get access to, and how can they more effectively overcome these barriers to get health care at the right places as opposed to ending up in the emergency room. So a simple barrier might be they don't have transportation to get to a clinic, and these lay navigators can help them. So arming the lay navigator with a tablet device that can go out into the community and help these folks can really lower costs and, again, improve health outcomes and get health care to everyone. So there's lots of different ways that mobile health can be used to improve our lives. Okay, so we talked about the trends, and we talked about how mobile can be transformative to government. So how do we get there? This is quite a journey. So I've had a couple of conversations with folks across this morning, and I think we always rush into the, how are we going to do this? Should we use this platform? Should we use this tool? And really, it's important to step back and think about what do we want to do first? It's like the wild, wild west out there. I don't know if you're finding this as much in government, but I notice when I walk into a lot of commercial organizations, one department's building an app over here, another one's building an app over here. There's no standards, there's no policies, there's no guidelines. It's great, let 1,000 flowers bloom. But on the other hand, we need to set some standards and guidelines and processes, etc. So organizations are starting to think more cohesively about the what. Who should I be focusing on? Who is that audience I want to target? What is the process I want to focus on? What is the need I'm trying to meet? And really come up with a cohesive mobile strategy with a business case. Okay? That's really, really important. Once you figure out the what, then you can focus on the how, thinking through your enterprise architecture and the mobile services that go along with it. And then you'll have to think about your operating model. What's the governance structure? How am I going to run this thing? Who's going to build this? Am I going to build it in-house? Am I going to use a third party? Are we going to do it in collaboration, etc.? So it truly is a journey. What you don't probably want to end up doing is landing on a decision in absence of what your end goal is. And clearly your strategy is going to change over time. The mobile technology market's changing very rapidly, but I would really strongly suggest you spend enough time on the what before you get too far on architecting out your solutions. So we've come up with an approach at Accenture to think about mobility in a holistic way as you start to put together this strategy, and it has 8 pieces to it. The first one is governance, because after you figure out the what, you really do need to sit and think about what are the standards, what are the policies, how are we going to run this? Okay? Then there's the whole application development and testing. How are we going to do our application development? What is our approach? How are we going to think about that? Then platform and software tools. You obviously want to think about, should I use this cross-platform tool? Should I go native? Should I go hybrid? Should I, what architectural approach makes sense for us? You're going to have to think through that. Another issue you're going to think about is, oh my goodness, and we already talked about BYOD, is the whole issue around mobile device management, mobile application management, or your mobile app store. That's another whole large area to consider. And then other areas you're going to want to focus on are user support. How am I going to support those users once I have them? What level of support? Are we going to treat different users differently? Is there going to be some kind of hierarchy? Service management. How am I going to manage all the demand for mobile that's coming into my centralized organization? How am I going to prioritize? How am I going to decide which gets through first, which gets through second, that I have the resources to develop these things. Tech support is another area, as well as architecture and infrastructure. So for each of these areas, you really want to spend the time and think about, how am I going to do this? And so organizations have recently embraced this concept of a mobile center of excellence. How many of you have heard of a mobile center of excellence before? Raise your hand. I see one hand, but it's very bright up here, so it's hard to tell. So this is a new trend that's going on out in the marketplace. We're starting to see it a little bit in government, but more so on the commercial side, where folks have said, you know, it's just completely out of control. You know, people have built apps, they break, nothing works. We have folks that don't comply with legal standards, privacy guidelines, policies. They find an app developer out of a garage, they have it built, and then what, right? They don't want to squash the innovation, but at the same time, they need to protect the organization, you know, from liability, from risk, et cetera. So increasingly, organizations have embraced this idea of a mobile center of excellence to promote adherence to a mobile strategy by acting as this proactive knowledge center and advisor and counselor to the organization. So what's the charter for this? The charter is to provide advice on opportunity creation, technology, strategies, thank you, you know, mobile security, standards, policies, staying up to speed in terms of all facets of not only what's going on in the market, but how are we going to develop in our organization? How are we going to drive adoption, both with external users and internal users? How are we going to standardize things so that we're not recreating the wheel? So bottom line is, this is a big trend. We're working with a lot of organizations to help set this up so that they have the domain expertise to enable this throughout their organization. And it's become, I think, a really important way to ensure that your mobile strategy is going in the right direction and that you don't get off the wheels. That doesn't mean that you're not going to experiment. That doesn't mean that you're not going to try new things and certain things aren't going to work, that the technology is not going to change. But the important thing is that you've thought about it in a holistic way, you have a cohesive operating model, and you're able to effectively run your mobile programs. So that's pretty much what I had.
All right, let's give Lisa a great big hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.